My name is Thomas Regan, and over the last 4 years, me and my wife have 20x'd our property portfolio position. I'm a professional property investor here in Australia, and I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of an overview of the difference between a very high quality property in terms of capital growth potential and a property with very low capital growth potential. And look, I'm gonna tell you just straight up the type of properties that I've invested in to build my wealth to this point are very different from the type of properties I will invest in for the end game. And the reason is for that is because when I started building wealth in property, I didn't have much income, so I needed to acquire properties that had high cash flow and potential, low intrinsic value, but I was taking advantage of marketplaces that were primed for capital growth. So although these properties were over a long time horizon, although these properties I typically invest in have a low capital growth potential, when I say low, about 5% capital growth potential year on year, I typically buy these properties at the point in the market where they have potential to 2 to 3 times, even sometimes more, in a very short space of time. Now, just to give a bit of context to that, if you have a property that is like a very decent level of capital growth potential, meaning it's growing by like a little 7 to 7.5% per year. That's generally pretty good capital growth potential for a property. If it's in one of those areas, generally it's doubling every 7 to 10 years. The properties that I like to buy properties that have potential to 3 times, possibly even 4 times in the space of 5 years. Okay, so the reality is once these properties have stabilized, they'll just settle and go back to the point where they are performing normally again at a 5% compounding growth rate. Okay, so this explosive growth can't obviously go on forever. And the reason I'm able to do that is because I understand how property markets work, how property market cycles work, and when to buy, when not to buy. And I look at different types of properties and markets performance over a very long period of time. When I say a very long period of time, I look what's this market been doing for the last 50 years. Okay, so but today I just wanted to give a clear difference between when it comes to growing wealth, if you're just from a long-term hold perspective, what's the difference between buying a quality capital growth property versus a not so quality capital growth property. Okay, so and I'll just say these high capital growth, these properties that generally get high capital growth, have high capital growth potential, their cash flow is extremely poor. Meaning, if you buy one of these properties, you're going to lose a lot of money from cash flow to hold on to them, which at this stage of my property portfolio, have a low income, I'm trying to build a large property portfolio, I can't afford to do that, okay? Because if you do that at the start of your property portfolio, if you're also not making a lot of money personally, you're literally going to kill your property portfolio straight away, and you won't be able to move. But here's the difference, right? For example, if you invest $1 million into a property market, in an area where a property market is growing by year on year over a very long period of time by 8.5% per year, 8.5% compounding growth per year. If you invest $1 million over 50 years in that property, it will be worth $59 million in 50 years. Now, look, I understand a lot of people struggle to grasp how much properties grow over a long period of time, but I just want to tell you guys that if you happen to be anywhere in Australia, and let's just be really specific, if you're in Bendigo and you owned a farm that was 16 acres in Bendigo in 1896, you could buy that thing for about $300. Okay, today it's worth $1 million, and that's just how capital growth works. Compounding interest is something that a lot of people can't really grasp. They can't really understand how powerful it becomes as time goes on. If you look at it on a graph, it goes like this, and then it just goes like this. The longer you invest, the longer you hold on to the asset, the last point of the last fraction or the last part of that ownership is where the growth just really gets exponential and it goes through the roof. But yes, as I was saying, a $1 million property, if you purchase a $1 million property in an area that is growing by 8.5% per year, it will be worth $5.9 million in 50 years, okay? A lot of people don't think over a 50-year time horizon, but that's reality. Now, what's the difference if you buy a property that's worth $1 million, as in the same price, and it's growing by 5% per year? Okay, so, and I just want to remind you guys that in Australia, about 90% of properties are growing by 5% per year. So it's hard to go wrong when you invest in property, because literally 90% of properties are all in going up by at least 5% per year. But once again, $1 million capital growth rate over 50 years of 5% per year, and that will end you at a property value of $11.4 million. Now you can see, obviously, there's a huge difference between $59 million and $11.4 million. It's almost a 5 times difference. So if all you were to do, you don't want to constantly build and grow a property portfolio, you don't want to constantly work at putting yourself in a position of wealth, and you just want to make one move, just make that one move to buy a property that's got huge capital growth potential, and then never sell it, okay? Because you're going to be 5 times more wealthy than if you buy in an area that hasn't got much capital growth potential. Now, that's probably all I wanted to say with that, guys. So hopefully this has given you a bit of clarity, a bit of understanding. Investing in property is the best. That's why I love it. See ya. Bye.